Good afternoon, friends, and welcome back to the last 3 weeks of Semester 2. Final assignments are looming, and the end of another school year is well and truly in sight. You are listening to Upstart Live. My name is Georgie Meadows, and I'll be your co-host for the final 3 shows this year, following on from the fantastic work of Alana Mazurik. We also have the delightful Rachel Roberts presenting today. How was your break, Rach?
It was really, really good. I went to the beach with some friends and I played some board games and I played Family Feud and won. It was good.
Oh,
what did you
congratulations. I have a little startup baking business, my cousin and I do. So we spent the whole week making homemade crumpets, espresso banana bread, chocolate chip cookies, all that jazz. And then we sold them all at the Red Hill Market on Grand Final Day.
That sounds really nice. Did you make some money?
Yeah, we surprisingly, but considering the weather and the fact that everyone was at home watching the game, we were pretty good.
What'd you call yourself?
We call ourselves Mother Mary after our grandmother.
Is it her secret recipes?
2 of them were. Her sticky marmalade cake was in the mix this week, and that just flew off the shelves.
Nice.
Now, Rich, true to form today, we have another very packed show. We'll be satisfying all your sporting needs with an extensive overview of the past AFL and NRL seasons. Our executive producer, Phil Kafkaludis, will join me and Rachel to discuss the influence of media bias and coverage on the US presidential candidates, and we've also got much, much more. Up next, we have our senior producer, Dan Martinez, who will look to whether the state school funding has been allocated fairly. But first, Rach, we've got you with today's headlines.
Thanks, Georgie. Underdogs, the Western Bulldogs, who have struggled for years and hadn't won a grand final since 1954 or even appeared in a finals playoff since 1961, squared off against the hotly favoured Sydney Swans, who were appearing in their 3rd grand final of 5 seasons, a bet only having won 1. Once the Dogs arose victorious, we will have more on this later during Hit or Miss, but it's a real fairy tale. Damaging winds are set to intensify across Adelaide as a deluge of rain continues to fall. The Bureau of Meteorology has warned westerly winds with speeds up to 60 kilometres per hour are set to arrive in Adelaide, Port Lincoln, Mount Gambier, Murray Bridge, Kingscote and Narra Court late this evening, triggering severe weather warnings from across the state. Armed robbers posing as policemen stole jewellery worth €10 million from US TV star Kim Kardashian at her plush Paris residence in the middle of the night on Sunday. A spokesperson for the Kardashians said she was badly shaken but physically unharmed after the assault.
Yeah, that story has gone berserk. I'm seeing it everywhere.
Yeah, me too. Lots of people are being a bit rude about poor Kim, but, that's not nice. It's not her fault.
No. It's just gone berserk, hasn't it? I can't get away from it. It's everywhere.
Absolutely.
But to other news, the federal government is in discussion as to whether they should fully fund the Gonski agreements and begin work on a new school funding model. Words such as corrupt have been thrown around by the Federal Education Minister, Simon Birmingham, and upwards of $3 billion is being played around with. Dan Martinez is in the studio with us now to talk more about this. How you doing, Dan?
I am fantastic. I'm very coffeed.
You're very coffeed,
yes. It's been a weird week in terms of schooling. For years, almost decades, Australians have argued over the best and kind of fairest way to fund our schools. It's one of the most contentious policies across government, and honestly, most politicians try to stay away from it. The tipping point for this whole argument coming back into the media, though, has been with the meeting of state and federal education ministers in Adelaide back last week. This marks the start of negotiations for a 4-year school funding model that begins in 2018. The issue with that is this was kind of when all the big spending for the final 2 years of the Gonski agreements, this is worth $4.5 billion, was meant to come into play. For those unaware, the Gonski report was commissioned by the government back in 2010 and chaired by businessman David Gonski. The review panel received more than 7,000 submissions and were visited by 39 schools, consulting almost 71 different groups. It presented its findings to the government in November, and the government released that report along with its initial response back in February 2012. Since then, the government and states have really been deliberating on the best way to go about it. It contained a lot of recommendations how the best way to proceed with all the schools' funding matters. Alongside this, we're really faced with issues of fairness. Simon Birmingham, back on Q&A, actually had this to say about it.
Some schools, under the arrangements we have, some schools who are notionally overfunded under the models, the 27 different models we have, some schools that are notionally overfunded take more than 100 years to come into alignment with the current funding model. That's the deal that Penny's government did.
But do you know that some schools are overfunded?
We do, Tony.
So how many?
Well, that depends, of course, how you actually measure what a funding benchmark is. No. I mean, we're not talking vast numbers, but there are some. And there are some, thanks to the type of special
Are the wealthier private
entrenched.
schools overfunded, to go back to the question?
There are some that fit that bill. Yes, there are.
So some
that is
private
because-
schools could expect, under your governorship of this, to lose money.
Well, Tony, that depends on whether we can actually reach some accord with the states and territories and ultimately with the Senate to get a fairer funding model in place.
So once again, we are met with the issue of the public versus private debate. Yay! It's a really big, huge issue. As someone especially went to a kind of a low key public school, it's one of those things that gets talked about a lot because you always have your principals always trying to strive for that private school excellence and such, to receive that level of academic funding. But if you can understand the division between private and public school funding in Australia, you deserve to be the top of the class. It's insane. You only need to refer to the most recent explanation of Australia's school funding system from the Parliamentary Library to see it is not only complex, it's been described as a red-hot mess. To summarize, the states fund most Commonwealth-funded private schools, which get tops up from state governments. Now, all the quizzical eyes here, this is very, very justified. So both state and federal parties both have a limited amount of control over who gets what funding. So there's a huge issue with accountability. Who's meant to, where is a parent meant to go to discuss, my child's school hasn't received any kind of facilities or any growth in the last 5 years. Do I go to a state person who's doing the initial funding or the government who is subsidizing it? It's a whole ordeal. On this issue, Mr. Burmy had this to say.
The federal government has, since the Menzies era, being the dominant government funder of the non-government school sector, yet the states and territories are still overwhelmingly the funders of government schools. The federal government, in fact, on a per-student basis, according to the last report on government services, contributes only about 13% of the cost to government schools. Yet we actually, on a per-student basis, of course, have these agreements in place that are highly bureaucratic, that don't actually, though, give the federal government any say in how that is actually utilised. Now, let's bring it right back to if you are a mum or a dad and you're concerned about how your school is run or how much funding your school gets. We seem to be increasingly entering a world where the responsibility of whether you should complain to your state minister or the federal minister...
Thus, we are brought down to the most simple answer of this entire debacle. Does more funding create better academic quality? The hard truth is some states spend their money more efficiently than others. I've kind of been through all of the reports from their NAPLAN stuff to their executive spending, all available at the Parliamentary Library. And from what I can see, there's a real differentiation on how much funding actually affects their overall scoring, at least what's reported. So Victoria spends on a per student basis in their government schools around $12,000 per student. Somewhere else like Western Australia spends $17,500 per student. There were wide disparities over what went into what we don't see as necessary, right? What doesn't come into play, as well as even the results. So the NAPLAN results, the really widely accessible ones, still showed quite a huge disparity between Melbourne funding and WA results. Sorry, not funding. At the end, despite this $5,500 difference. So we still have to wait how this will affect Australia's school system over the coming months, but these issues are being further and further investigated, and we can only see how a heavy overhaul is what's in order.
Interesting. So, Dan, you know how mall schools, public or private, they're always striving to get the best results, so they can be like, la la la, our kids get the best results in the country. Do they get more funding if your results are better?
So the way it works is in accordance with, those little NAPLAN tests, the ones that you used to take in school. So they are the ones that I was able to access. Mm-hmm. From where they have a grading system in accordance with schooling and such like that, where you would put in certain individuals' tiers. These tiers correlate to the amount of funding you will get from state and federal bodies, depending on your overall scores. So you want to be in higher tiers, and therefore funding is allocated accordingly. However, the issue of overfunding then comes into play with private schools as well as the schools that are having these lower scores are probably the ones that need the extra help.
Yeah,
I was about to
right?
say, because what's ironic is that it, I went to an all-girls private school, and, you've got each student, say there's about 600, and you're paying an average of 20 grand per year. And, the school that I went to was known for its academic achievements. So it's unfair to be getting that much money per student, plus receiving extra funding, to in a bid to further your academic achievement when it's already
and that's one of
expensive.
the key issues they've kept discussing is this fact that there is a true element of unfairness to it, where you have one school where there's no child left behind, but you are having these kids who have limited funding and being put behind due to their socioeconomic status.
Yeah.
It's a real serious issue.
It is. Well, thank you for your very thorough overview of that, Dan.
Yes, thanks very much. That was awesome. You're listening to Upstart Live. We are Rachel Roberts and Georgie Meadows, and the time is 2:10 on the dot, and we broadcast live from 2 p.m. every Tuesday on upstart.net. And now we are going to lead into a package about the coverage of the presidential election, the American presidential election, obviously, and just how the media has been dealing with that. With the presidential debate heating up and the world holding its breath to see who will end up in that Oval Office, we begin our coverage of the 2016 presidential election. We will have Phil Kafaloudis in the studio, and we'll talk about how the media outlets have been helping and hurting the campaign. But first, we have Nam Kurt getting into the nitty-gritty of the most recent presidential debate.
With November the 8th fast approaching, the American presidential candidates Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump have kicked off their final month of campaigning, with the first of the traditional American presidential debates last week in Hampstead, New York. It was a 90-minute battle of endurance. Clinton stood cool, calm and collected, almost serene as she smiled through the insults, and landed a few jabs of her own. Whilst Trump gripped his podium, insisting he alone had the temperament to be Commander-in-Chief of America's armed forces. The former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton pitched herself as the voice of reason with steady experience, the one who understands the world.
As soon as he travels to 112 countries and negotiates a peace deal, a ceasefire, a release of dissidents, an opening of new opportunities, that he can talk to me about stamina.
Trump, the Republican, played the populist bruiser, wielding the cutty insults and pitching to the frustrated voters in the American swing states of Ohio and Pennsylvania, the ones who are fed up with politicians and wanting change. It was sometimes less like two presidential candidates vying for the most powerful office in the nation, and more like toddlers bickering in a nursery. Bickering first about Trump's tax returns and the email scandal which has plagued Hillary Clinton's campaign.
I will release my tax returns against my lawyer's wishes when she releases her 33,000 emails that have been deleted.
I made a mistake using a private email.
That's for sure.
And if I had to do it over again, I would obviously do it differently.
With heightened tensions in the Middle East being one of the main issues of the campaign, both candidates tried to stake their credentials on whose policies would support a safer America.
Donald supported the invasion of Iraq.
Wrong.
That is absolutely
Wrong.
proved over and over again.
Wrong.
He actually advocated for the actions we took in Libya.
I did not support the war in Iraq.
2002.
That is a mainstream media nonsense put out by her, because she, frankly, I think the best person in her campaign is mainstream media. I was against the war in Iraq, just so you put it out.
The record shows otherwise,
the record
but why
does not show
why
that.
is your
The
judgment
record
any...
shows that I'm right.
And in the battle over infrastructure, it was Hillary Clinton who delivered the best one-liner of the night, stating that only she was the one prepared to be president.
We have a country that needs new roads, new tunnels, new bridges, new airports, new schools, new hospitals. And we don't have the money because it's been squandered on so many of your ideas.
But you're
And maybe
responsible for
because you haven't paid any federal income tax for a lot of years. And the other thing I think is important.
It would be
to point out
squandered too,
is,
believe me.
I think Donald just criticized me for preparing for this debate. And yes, I did. And you know what else I prepared for? I prepared to be president. And I think that's a good thing.
So who won the debate? Almost unanimous support was given for Hillary Clinton and the way she upheld herself. But with another 2 debates and a vice presidential debate planned, the Trump camp has ample time to strike back. The most entertaining part of the week was left to the comedian team of Saturday Night Live, who produced their own mock debate featuring Alec Baldwin playing Donald Trump.
I've got a very presidential answer for this. Our jobs are fleeing this country. They're going to Mexico. They're going to China. I will stop that. If Hillary knew how, she would have done it already, period. End of story. I won the debate. I stayed calm, just like I promised, and it is over. Good night, Hofstra.
The skit also sent up alleged microphone difficulties, which Trump laid blame for his poor performance in the debate.
My microphone is broken. She broke it with Obama. She and Obama stole my microphone. They took it to Kenya. They took my microphone to Kenya and they broke it, and now it's broken. Can you hear that? It's picking up somebody sniffing here. I think it's her sniffs. She's been sniffing all night. Testing. Gina. Huge Gina.
This man is clearly unfit to be commander-in-chief.
Wrong.
He is a bully.
Shut up.
He started the birther movement.
You did.
He says climate change is a hoax invented by China.
It's pronounced Gina.
He hasn't released his tax returns, which means he's either not that rich,
Wrong.
not that charitable,
Wrong.
or he's never paid taxes in his life.
Warmer.
Tune in next week for more coverage of the United States presidential campaign as the election draws into its final month.
Back with Phil Kafkaloutis, former political reporter and our executive producer here on Upstart. How's it feel to be on this side of the glass, Phil?
I know, it's really scary.
It's first time
I
in
don't
7
want to be
shows.
interviewed by you guys.
Because we're so intimidating, aren't we?
Yeah.
So to start off, Phil, we would like to know if you believe that the widespread, I guess, public hatred is how we would describe it, that's been directed at Trump by the public and online and in other more traditional media forms during the campaign has aided his campaign in a positive way.
It's interesting because the hatred, there's lots of hatred going around at the moment.
Yeah.
One, there's so many people who hate Trump or laugh at Trump. I don't know if hatred is necessarily the right word, but then from the Trump camp, there is definitely hatred towards Hillary Clinton. You know, this is something that has been whipped up, and it's whipped up by Donald Trump saying repeatedly that she is a liar, she ought to be locked up, that she's responsible for 9/11, that she was responsible for MH17. You know, there's so many things that he has done that has whipped it all up. And so the hatred thing is offering, I suppose cynically, a point of difference. He wanted to be a point of difference. He wanted to be the candidate that was different. Yeah, and he certainly has achieved that. So it's worked to a degree in his favour, and I think I was actually quite surprised at how well his polling went. That when he started to pull fairly close to Hillary Clinton is an extraordinary thing.
Yeah.
That, you know, Americans, and usually, I remember Paul Keating saying in Australia once that Australians usually make the right decision when it comes to electing people. They usually do. And he said that before he got thrown out and John Howard got thrown in. But he said they usually do. And in America, they usually do make the right decision. When George H.W. Bush was elected in 1988. They threw him out in 1992 when a better candidate came along, and that was Bill Clinton, you know?
Yep.
So they do. But so I was surprised that the polling showed so comprehensively that Donald Trump was gaining ground. It was an extraordinary... And he still made more mistakes, and I can probably guarantee you that, again, he will pull pretty close, that the more that he espouses how bad America has gone, how low it's gone, people will be touched by that. You know.
Well, it certainly does get your name in the paper, and that's the thing that really jumped out at me was looking at our data and the sheer number of headlines in which Donald Trump's name appeared. Across 8 different outlets, we found that Trump's name was mentioned just short of 15,000 times from July 1st, 2015 to August 31st, 2016. And Clinton was half that amount, you know, like just... say my name.
Well, but Trump is so much more interesting. I mean, he is a reality show host, and he knows how to say stuff that's going to press buttons, and that's all he's been wanting to do is press buttons. He is not a Republican.
No, well, in this, it didn't specify whether in the headlines it was for or against Trump, just the fact that he's there. And then it's that question of whether any publicity is good publicity. And I was actually in a lecture an hour before this started. My lecturer was saying how he disagrees that any publicity is good publicity. What would you say to
Any
that?
publicity can be good publicity. There's nothing, you're not going to get elected if nobody knows you.
No, exactly.
So there is a real value in being out there. But if you're out there because you are an idiot or a racist, I mean, one of the best known names in the world, apart from Jesus, is Adolf Hitler.
Yeah.
But who wants to be Adolf Hitler?
No, exactly.
Nobody.
But
Well,
yet everyone knows exactly who he is.
they know who Trump is, and that's right, but they might know him as this dipstick from America who might have control of the button. And people are talking about him because there is a genuine worry, I think, in many circles that he could be the one who could decide whether there will be another world war.
Do you think Trump and Clinton's respective presence, not only in like political culture, but in more, well, especially Trump with his reality TV show, in kind of more popular culture, has impacted their campaigns?
The background that he's had.
So we've seen Clinton next to Bill for years, and we've seen Trump on TV and just kind of like forcing himself into our lives for years, and he's been making outrageous comments. And that's, there's some cases when some American politicians, you have to be really in the know and be very well versed in American politics to know who they are, where they came from, their story. But these two candidate stories being quite public.
Yes.
So do you think that's how that would have impacted the following campaign?
Yeah, well, obviously everyone knows who Hillary was. She was the person who tried to get the health policy through in her husband's days as president. So right from the beginning, she was very well known. And Donald Trump, and it's worked for Donald Trump as well, being the anti-candidate. It's surprising to me how well he has succeeded. But when you look at the people that he was up against who were not known, Ted Cruz, Marco Rubio, we've had people John Kasich, who were really bad performers. They are terrible performers. And you can see why the Republicans, and they weren't bright enough to understand what Donald Trump was about. And Donald Trump was about insulting them, and they fell for it and started insulting him. Now, who's going to do insult better, Donald Trump or Marco Rubio? Donald Trump.
Absolutely.
So when you try to battle him on his ground, you're going to lose.
Yeah.
And they all lost. But what we're seeing now with Hillary Clinton, I think the best thing for Hillary Clinton is when she got sick, to be honest with you, because she had 3 days where she had to stop. She had been running into overdrive. She had been trying to match him. He'd been getting her angry. She'd been getting angry back at him. He can handle anger really well. You can see he does the big smile thing. He doesn't take it all too seriously. She started to go spinning out. That 3 days break, she came back and she performed magnificently. The debate, she did a great job in the debate. Every comment she makes, and the comment that she's got to keep pushing is, Donald Trump says we'll make America great again. Well, I've got news for you, Donald. America is great.
Yes.
She keeps hitting that. And my prediction is, and it's always a dangerous thing for an academic to say here, but I think Donald Trump won't even come close.
No,
he is going to be annihilated. He's going to be annihilated.
Yep.
In this, he will carry a handful of states. If I'm wrong, my whole reputation as an academic is gone.
No. We'll still love you, Phil. Don't worry.
Thank you.
Because I think, well, I can't speak for Rachel, but I'm with you on that one.
What do you think, Rach?
I think so. I hope so, personally.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. It would be bleak. Really, really.
It'd be an interesting time.
It would be interesting. It would be interesting. But frightfully so.
Well, you know what? Most people grow into the role. George W. Bush was a very small governor, a small man, but in the role he actually became... In fact, there's a TV series around, I don't know if anyone's seen it, called The Circus.
No.
And it's two political reporters talking every Monday night about what's happened the week before, and they're fantastic. And they have George W. Bush's former strategist in them, so it's the three of them. And of all the candidates on the Republican side, the only one that's had any charm in the whole series is when George W. Bush came in.
Really?
Yeah. He was, compared to Rubio and compared to Cruz and Kasich and Jeb Bush, George Bush walked in to one scene and you just went, oh man, this guy, why isn't he running for president? And I'm
Yeah.
going, what am I doing? Slap myself.
Oh my goodness. Well, thank you so much for your time, Phil. I'll look up that TV show and have a look at it.
The Circus, very good.
The Circus.
Okay.
Yes, thank you so much.
See ya.
We appreciate it. You are listening to Upstart Live. We are Rachel Roberts and Georgie Meadows. The time is 2:25 and we broadcast live at 2 p.m. every Tuesday on upstart.net.au. Coming up, we'll have our very own Rachel Roberts continuing her two-part series looking at some of the dirtier trends taken on by Australia's youth. This week, Rach will be breaking down doors in the world of squatting. Stay tuned.
Thanks, everyone. Last week I did a segment about dumpster diving, and this week I'll be talking to you about squatting. Not the exercise, of course, but the act of occupying an otherwise unoccupied area of land. Some people squat to avoid homelessness, and others aim to make a political point about the short supply of affordable housing in Australia, or well, around the world, really. When you are squatting, you're considered to be a trespasser and you are constantly at risk of being evicted from the place that you're at. But one of the really fun trivia laws about squatting is adverse possession. I remember hearing about this when I was a kid and it blew my mind, which is that if you manage to peacefully keep a property for longer than 12 years, if you squat on a property for longer than 12 years, you get it. You win it.
Wow.
You win the legal title to that property.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Adverse possession. Look it up.
I will.
But one of the most publicly talked about instances of squatting would be the recent case of Bendigo Street in Collingwood. The Victoria government acquired like 17 or so properties to make way for the East and West Link project, which we all know was then dumped. And the houses were just empty. And then eventually they were occupied by squatters for 18 months. So like over a year, people were living there. And then they were asked to leave quite recently. And the police were like, we're going to kick you out. But then in a really interesting landmark case on the 14th of August this year, Andrew's government agreed to withdraw the injunction against the squatters for at least 3 weeks, which to me, I didn't expect that at all.
No.
Because usually law does not, side with the squatters. But I was like, yeah, cool, interesting. And then they were supposed to be exploring other housing options in those 3 weeks. And their lawyer, Megan Fitzgerald, who was lawyer to most of the squatters, said this was slightly ambitious. And then on the 24th of August, they were given another 3-week reprieve.
That's fun.
It's pretty well known that Melbourne is facing a housing crisis, particularly Melbourne CBD. The number of people sleeping on the streets has increased 74% in the past 2 years, which is a lot.
Yeah.
In Victoria, 25,000 people are homeless and there are 35,000 people on the waiting list for public housing. But interestingly, I was reading water retailers have done some studies and they suggest that 80,000 houses in Victoria are effectively empty. They are not using water, which means there's no one there. So that's 20% of all investor-owned homes. 20%. They're all empty.
Vacant.
Yep. And, yeah, a lot of people would say, that's unacceptable. And, if there are empty houses and there are homeless people,
Put 2 and 2 together and make everyone happy.
Yeah. At the moment, we are lucky enough to have Travis on the line, and he's going to give us a first-hand account about squatting and some of the details involved. Hey, Travis.
Hi, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
Yeah, very well.
So, tell us a little bit about your living situation.
So at the moment, I'm living in 2 different places. One close to my university, another north side near Preston. And I guess pretty much they're just empty houses that have been bought out by companies who have plans to destroy the houses in the coming years, but until that happens, I've just moved into them with a few friends.
Yeah. Are you living with friends, or who else is living in these places with you?
So the one close to uni is just 5 friends from university who've all decided that that's how we want to live. The place north side, where I go to on the weekends, I guess, is just a friend who I've worked with, and other friends will come and go.
It's pretty.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool to like be in university and have a weekend house. That's pretty convenient.
Yeah, it is quite nice, and I guess there's also talk of like finding houses close to the ocean in the summertime, that kind of thing.
Well, that sounds like
A life of luxury.
Yeah, that sounds like a lifestyle and a half. So did you meet these people first and they invited you into the place, or did you set up some of these houses?
Yeah, so the first, I guess, squat, even don't like using the term squat because it has negative connotations. So the first house I moved into was set up by a few friends, I guess. It's been around for 6 years. So I joined that, and then sort of once I started understanding how it all worked and how easy it was, I've also set up this other house close to university, and then sort of invited friends into the idea, and sort of collectively we've started it up and try to keep it running with equal sane and on a collective basis.
6 years is a long time to have a place going. What's it like? Do you have water, electricity, internet?
Yeah, so I mean, all houses have to have water, so I guess that's the most important thing. The house has been running for 6 years, also has gas. I'm not quite sure why it's still there, but no one's ever come around to disconnect it, so it's just always meant we've had hot water and yeah, it can have baths and whatever. And the other house doesn't have gas or electricity. But I think for both houses, not having electricity is quite like a choice that we've made. Just like keeping the natural rhythms of life and not staying up too late. And, candles are always quite nice. And,
Yeah.
we can always go other places to recharge our phones and whatnot.
Yeah. So why did you do it? Why did you make the decision to, live this like really kind of natural
Off the grid
kind of lifestyle?
I guess there's a few reasons. It's, I guess, like a form of activism for some people, which it sort of was for me. I guess there's like 80,000 free homes in Melbourne, and through that they can bump the rent prices up dramatically, and I think this whole system is just quite unfair on most people. So, like, as more people do this, there's more awareness being brought to the real issue, which is, I think, the way the housing system is run in Melbourne and probably throughout most Western cultures. So that's a big thing, and also just it's sort of a nicer community, I think, to be part of a lot of the time. And like put money into other things besides paying someone rent is an important thing when you're at university.
Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely.
Travis, thanks so much for talking to us. Like, it was really good to get like a first-person insight.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys. You're listening to Upstart Live. We are Rachel Roberts and Georgie Meadows. The time is 2:33. We broadcast live at 2 p.m. every Tuesday on upstart.net.au. Now, with final VC exams looming, it's only natural, Rach, that we discuss the end-of-year celebrations synonymous with this teenage rite of passage. For years, the restrictions on Muck-Up Day and other end-of-year celebrations has only increased. A day that used to have little Year 7s like me back in the day quaking in their boots and Year 12s throwing urine-filled condoms all over the place. A fond memory. While it can all be fun and games, some people do take it way too far and can potentially ruin what's meant to be a fun day for everyone. So I guess the first question for you is, did you celebrate Muck-Up Day and what year did you graduate?
I graduated... Personal question. I graduated in 2011.
Yes.
I went to this kind of like alternative school, which, sounds a bit lame, but I think everyone there, it wasn't so much like Muck-Up Day, let's ruin the school, this place that has imprisoned us,
Yeah.
We had a lot of love for the school and we had a lot of respect for the teachers. So it was the most beautiful day. We had a champagne breakfast And then
Real champagne?
yeah, we drank champagne at
Oh,
breakfast
how
at someone's
nice.
house with our teachers and just
Oh,
had a
how
chat. And then as
lovely.
a little bit of a joke, a little bit of a prank, we hired a stripper
You rebels.
to come dance up on all our teachers.
Oh my gosh.
And interesting side note, he was on The Bachelor
No, which
this
who?
season. He got taken off on the first round.
The blonde guy with the big blue eyes.
No.
Oh no,
I
I obviously don't watch The Bachelor.
Yeah, had a tattoo on his chest.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
he
I don't
owns a
really
club
watch it.
now, which is kind of cool. And-
Yeah.
But anyway, I
that's
was just like, oh, it's
hilarious.
you. And then I called up all my school friends and I was like, oh, hello.
The stripper that we got, he's famous in his own right now.
Yeah.
Oh, how awesome. Yeah, ours was very similar. It was more a celebratory day because the year before, the year 12s, our principal made this whole speech, and it was kind of, like a moving forward vibe kind of a speech, and then they vandalized. They wrote moving backwards all over the school, so their day was completely cancelled. So then we had very strict guidelines, and we could have it wasn't a champagne breakfast, we got orange juice, but we had a little breakfast, and as I said before, I went to an all-girls school, so we had to tie ribbon in each other's hairs, and it was all very typical. But so this year there have been more articles surfacing about the complete abolition of muck-up day and the pranking involved in favour of more docile alternatives, I guess. Some schools are even requiring that students volunteer for the day, so they go to soup kitchens or so that they collect donations for the Salvation Army, all this jazz. So what is your opinion on that?
Charity's nice, volunteering's nice. That's lame.
Yeah.
Do it, but maybe not that day.
Yeah.
But then again, you know what? There have been past examples where things did get hectic and
out of hand,
awful and bad. Like for instance, in 1999, there was a muck-up night, got out of control, and someone got stabbed, and there was a fight, and there was alcohol, and that was awful. And then 2003, the RSPCA had to come investigate claims about a student from a Catholic secondary school stabbing and mutilating a live chicken. So don't do that. Don't do that.
No.
But I just don't see why we can't all just
Well,
be sensible. Keep our wits about us.
Yeah, well, I have a brother in year 10, and we were talking about it the other night, and he was just saying, in any case, some people just take it way too far. You give them an inch, they take a mile. So I'm not sure if a total ban or really severe restrictions on what you can and can't do on muck-up day will keep these kids in their place, or just give them, if you tell them, no, sorry guys, you can't celebrate, you're graduating from high school, you have to go collect money for the Salvation Army. If that will just make them retaliate even harder, I just don't know.
They are 17 and 18-year-olds, so I don't understand why you can't just sit them down and be like, hey guys, keep it classy. Just be cool. Just be chill.
Or Matt Coburn, who is sick today, but he's always on the show. They had graduation or their graduation ceremony or their valedictory dinner on the same night as the last day of school. So their consequences were if they mucked up, they wouldn't be allowed to go to the dinner, and they wouldn't get their token diploma. So that's an option. Or if you had what is it? Not prom, formal on the same night or something. If it was a severe consequence, it might deter them.
For sure. You're listening to Upstart Live. We are Rachel Roberts and Georgie Meadows. The time is 2:38, and we broadcast live at 2 p.m. every Tuesday on upstart.net.au. Coming up, we have Jared Gardner, staff writer for Upstart magazine, and he'll be talking about some of the biggest stories of this week. And now we have Jared Gardner, one of the staff writers for upstart.net.au. And now first off for some of our newer viewers, Jared, what is Upstart?
Upstart is a student-run publication at La Trobe University. It's all edited by our third-year students, and we've got staff writers across second and third year. We write articles throughout the semester for the website.
Very nice. So our first story that we'll be discussing describes one of the most underwhelming pieces of infrastructure, as metro trains have been voted the worst in Australia for the 5th year running.
Yeah, it's interesting, seeing as we kind of pride ourselves on public transport. It's a way a lot of Melburnians get around.
Yeah.
But to see that we're the worst in Australia is not a good look for Melbourne.
Yeah,
No.
I was really surprised because, like, a couple of weeks ago, we're like, yeah, Melbourne, best city in the world.
Yeah, and at every a lot of the train stations that I frequent, they have those posters and they're framed, and it says 98.2 arrive on time and 99.3 like only 0.7% get cancelled ever. So I wonder how those stats relate to these findings.
Yeah, I think it's not so much the timing of the trains, it's more the quality of them. There's a lot of vandalism going on, and the times of trains means it's overcrowding, especially in peak hour in the morning and coming home. It's really crowded, and a lot of people are really not happy with it.
No, and would it have anything to do with the level crossings that make the congestion of traffic, of car traffic?
I think that plays a part, especially with all the work they're planning on doing in the next couple of years. It's going to be interesting to see if it can get any better than what it is at the moment.
Yep.
One bit really hit me hard was when this guy was like, oh, why am I paying for this service if I'm so dissatisfied with it? And I was like, I have thought that before too. If I got a really terrible cup of coffee, I'd be like, I'm not paying for this, but paying for my Mackie all the time every day. Oh well.
Yeah, and there's the issue of tourists, or if you're just down for the day, you have to spend what is it, $6 for the actual card?
$7 for the card.
$7 for the card, then top it up.
Yeah.
So do you think this is negatively impacting Melbourne's tourism?
I guess so. I think correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that most states in Australia, or at least a couple of others, have similar systems to the Mikey.
Yeah, well, I thought that was why Mikey was introduced, because Melbourne, wanted to align itself with the other states and other world systems.
Yeah, and even if you do want to align yourself, but if we don't have the same system in place, we have to spend money to travel around Melbourne, and then you have to go up to Sydney and buy a different card and travel on a different system. Yeah. It's not good for commuters.
It's not good. Speaking of less than ideal things, we also have another story about some of Channel 7's less than ideal rating post-Olympics. It's kind of a shame.
Yeah, it was interesting because I remember watching the Olympics over the couple of weeks it was on, and every time there was an ad, I saw the Zumbo's Just Desserts, that show, and I was just waiting for the Olympics to finish so I could not see those ads anymore.
Yep.
And that was a big thing for Channel 7 because they thought, well, we've got this prime time, we're going to have the majority of viewers throughout the night and in the morning when the events are on, that if we just pump them with these ads and tell them these shows are on, they'll come and watch. But no one stayed and watched. They went and watched the other reality shows on Channel 9 and 10.
I'm sorry, The Bachelor's on Channel 10. No one's watching Zumbo.
Yeah, fair enough. It's a Bachelor, Survivor.
Exactly.
All that stuff has come back at the same time, and it's been
because they're more established shows as well. Zumbo's brand new, so even if you do overexpose people to it, they might go with what they know.
Yeah, of course.
Over something that's new.
Well, I never, ever, ever watch free-to-air television, except then when I was away on mid-term break, I started watching The Bachelor for the first time ever, and you know what? I think I'm going to keep watching it.
I was going to say, are you hooked?
So Channel 10, there we are.
Yeah.
Sorry, Channel 7, it's not happening.
And finally, we have a lighthearted way some Australian comedians have aimed to tackle some of the big issues in our country.
Yes, it was interesting. A comedy gala just over, I think it was 2 weeks ago now almost, hosted by Tom Ballard. And they really wanted to take comedy and use it to kind of hit some of the hard issues in politics at the moment.
Yep. Fantastic. So observational comedy has been used for years to help explain some heavy and complex issues. Does this event look like it'll gain any results, in your opinion?
From what I've heard about it, I think it's done really well, and I think it'll have an effect because comedy has never been... Comedians want to make jokes about what's happening in the world, but they never actually go any further to tackle the issues.
Yeah.
And that was something that this event really tried to do. They had the invite your local MP.
Nice.
They asked everyone to invite their local MP to it, and they really wanted to tackle. They gave all the comedians free roam on whatever they wanted to talk about, and the most popular topics were the plebiscite and refugees, and I think they did a really good job of it.
Yeah, nice one.
All right. Well, thanks, Jared. Thanks
No
for coming
worries.
on and telling us all about what's going on.
Thanks for having me.
The
Pleasure.
Upstart magazine. You're listening to Upstart Live. We are Rachel Roberts and Georgie Meadows, and the time is 2:44. We broadcast live 2 p.m. every Tuesday on upstart.net.au. Coming up, we have all the tears and triumphs of the AFL and NRL Grand Finals on Hit or Miss with Morgan Harding, Josh Schonefinger, and Kyle Humphries. Hey guys, what a week of sport. Lots to talk about, so take us away.
Yeah, big one. 2 big grand finals. We started on Saturday with the AFL grand final.
Yeah, what a game.
And the Bulldogs by 22 points. I'm here with Morgan Harding and Kyle Humphries. I'm Josh Schonefinger. Kyle, what did you take away from the game on the weekend?
Probably about, not much really. To be fair, I just
always
thought that was going to happen. I was watching the first quarter. Sydney are up. I'm just sitting back there, calm on my couch, going, Bulldogs are going to roll over the top of these.
Wait.
That's what I did.
Did you think that the Dogs were going to win this for the whole thing, the whole season?
No. Just for that quarter,
For the game.
Yeah, for the game.
It's like, how could you have picked that?
No, I'm not Nostradamus or anything. So, yeah. So
Was there a certain moment in the game that really said to you that this game's all over?
Not really. Probably just Dale Morris tackling Buddy at the end there has probably just cooked it for the Swans. But as I said, yeah, just the way the Bulldogs have played for the last 3 weeks with how calm they are and their determination, like Sydney in front, they needed to get away by a lot or else they're always going to be pegged back.
Morgs, what was your big moment from the game?
My big moment, Tom Boyd. I was just going to say his one goal, but his whole game. It was
a coming of age match for him.
It was a huge coming of age. And
some of his big grabs in packs and very important.
Just really integral to the Dogs winning it.
Certainly silenced the critics and justified his pay packet.
Did you see the tweet from Mark Robinson 2 years ago about the Bulldogs being a rabble for paying $1 million for Boyd a season? Justified now, isn't it?
It certainly is. My big moment from the game would probably be in the first quarter when you were speaking, Cole. Zane Cordy tackled Callum Mills, got him holding the ball, and then Cordy slotted the goal from the boundary, sort of gave him the momentum.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's also very good to see the crowd. There's lots of red, white, and blue, rather than just all corporate and people like neutral supporters. It was like a proper, how you see like in the GAA, for example, in Ireland at Croke Park, their finals, it's just the two counties that go. So it was really, really loud and really
speaking of the
passionate.
crowd, there was a bit of crowd interaction at the end of the game when Tom Liberatore was interviewed by a fan on Snapchat. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that, Carl?
Yeah. So this is probably one of the best things I've ever seen for a long time. Just describing how it was like to feel win the Ashes and make 100 against Funky Miller, which was very, very funny. Tom would have had a very, very big weekend, I think.
Still recovering, I'd imagine.
Yeah, I think so. We'll leave it at that, I reckon.
Morgan, was Jason Johannesson the rightful winner of the Norm Smith medal for the best on ground, in your opinion?
This has been a bit of a topic of interest lately, hasn't it? I personally think when you look at the numbers, JJ was exceptional, but his disposal efficiency was not that great.
Yeah.
So I would be tempted more to have given it to Tom Boyd.
Yeah, okay.
Just because his numbers were fairly good. 3 goals?
Yeah, 3 goals and 8 marks,
Yeah. So just given that, I think he probably deserved it a little tiny bit more.
Yep. Not as much influence as Tom Boyd.
Tom Boyd, yeah.
So as we've played our last game of the season in the AFL, what was your big moment for the whole season? It's been a big year, obviously, an underdog winning the flag. Was there a moment that stood out for the season for either of you two?
Oh, underdog current again. I think Melbourne getting over Hawthorn
Earlier in the year, about round 18, round 19.
Yeah, that was insane. I don't think anybody would have picked it.
Maybe it's a sign that the Hawks are coming down and the D's are coming up.
I think that was the moment where we all realised stuff is changing.
Yeah.
Times are a-changing.
Yeah, mine are pretty dire year for Collingwood, as we all know, but my highlight was Sam Lloyd.
Yeah.
Alex Lloyd at the Brownlow, wrecking his own song. Sam Lloyd kicking the goal after the siren for Richmond to beat Sydney at the MCG. A lot of supporters there. It was pretty good.
Yeah.
Tigers don't have many highlights for
Certainly
the
not.
last 35 years. So
Yeah, it's good. It's a good call.
yeah, it was good for them. And I don't like Sydney at all.
Bit of bias there.
I think my big moment from the season would have been the preliminary final, the Bulldogs beating GWS on their home track.
Slaying the Giants, yeah.
To a full crowd and lots of travelling supporters and that. I mean,
yeah, and Beveridge, the coach, shouting them breakfast. So
I thought that was a great touch as well.
Yeah,
$10 for
nice.
the breakfast
It's
in
lovely.
Wodonga.
And because my hometown, get around it.
Who were the overachievers this year, guys? Who had a really good season, and then who were the underachievers? Who's going to be really disappointed with their 2016?
Well, Richmond, obviously, I think.
Yeah, I think disappointed with their 2016.
Yeah.
Brisbane Lions, they've
Yeah.
gone backwards a lot.
Certainly.
There's a lot of pressure on the Collingwood, how far they're going backwards, but Brisbane Lions they're in a pit. They're in one of Gina Reinhardt's pits in Western Australia, and it's a long, long way in the big Tonkin truck out.
Well, they've got new coach in Chris Fagan, who will be announced later this week. So they're going to have to be hoping for a Luke Beveridge or a Brendan Bolton sort of revival.
They will.
Is there anything like that on the horizon for the Lions?
I wouldn't think so, because a lot of the Bulldog stuff is a passion from their supporters.
Yes, and I think too the culture at Brisbane is not great. We've seen that over the past couple years. So it'll be a whole turnaround of everything at that club.
Yeah.
Sure. Let's have a look at our for next season predictions. Top 8. Who's going to make it? What are we going to see movement wise in the off season? And are they going to impact the top 8 for next year?
So my top 8 to start with, Sydney will be still up there.
Yeah, agreed.
Their core players are all going to stay there, revolving around Franklin, McVeigh, Kennedy. They're still going to be class.
Will a
next
Mitchell
year.
loss, potential Tom Mitchell loss to Hawthorn or to another Melbourne club, will that hurt them?
Not really. I think they've got a lot. They're like Parker. They've got a lot of great
Yeah, they do.
midfielders.
Yeah.
They'll entice a lot of draft picks as well.
Yeah, and draft picks that just keep coming through. They'll be up for a bid. Geelong for second.
Oh, I'd put Geelong way down, 5th.
5th. Yeah, I think
Their list is too old.
the list is old, but I think they're coming through, and I think the Dangerfield, Selwood,
Yeah, that's a good combo.
they develop. This is where like the kids at Brisbane are going to get lost because they don't have Selwood, they don't have Dangerfield
Leaders, I guess.
leader kind of thing. So they get more out of their fringe players than other clubs. Third, I've got Adelaide. I think 11 games in Adelaide a year. There's nearly 10 wins plus a few on the road. You know, they're up there again.
Yeah.
GWS will stay
Obviously.
4th, I think.
Yep.
So, yeah, obviously on what they've done this year, they're going to get better. Got more draft picks.
Yeah.
And I've gone for 5th for a really big improve. I reckon St Kilda.
My beloved Saints.
I reckon St Kilda are going to be really firing next year. They're very, very promising. They're kids and Rewalt's leadership. Well, he won't be captain next year, but
He'll still play a leading role, I think.
still a leading role. They're going to be. They're very exciting. The game they played against Collingwood, they're just running and handballing and taking it on. It's really, really good for me. So, where did you have St Kilda, Morgan? 6th.
I'm a bit of a pessimist about it, though. Nearly missed them in the 8, but they should get there.
We're going to have to move on to Sunday's match, which was another upset victory. In the NRL Grand Final, the Sharks defeated the Storm by 2 points in Sydney. And it's the first premiership win for the Sharks in their 50-year history, guys.
Yeah, another drought broken, which is great to see.
Key players from the game, Carl?
So we've got Ben Barber and Andrew Fafita both scoring tries. So
Crucial for Fafita try at the end, just pushing momentum for the Sharks.
Yeah, so 14-2. It's just a missed kick from a try for Melbourne. So it's a very close game. See the Sharks dominated possession and territory, but the Storm ensured it remained close. So
and of course the Sharks managed to nullify the influence of Cooper Cronk, who won the Dally M.
Yeah, I was about to mention him. He had a great game.
And he was going to be a key player, but he just couldn't.
Yeah, it was interesting to see. I don't think the rest of the team really stood up to his level, I suppose.
Yeah, I didn't watch the game, so I was travelling back to Melbourne's, but I caught a few highlights. So, well done to Cronulla.
Oh, well, thank you for your cutting insight anyhow then, Carl. We're going to leave it at that, guys. Thanks for the great weekend of sport, and we'll head back to you, Rachel.
Yeah, thanks, sports fans. That was Morgan Harding, Josh Schonefinger, and Carl Humphries. You're listening to Upstart Live. We are Rachel Roberts and Rachel Roberts and Georgie Meadows. And the time is 2:55 exactly. We broadcast live at 2 p.m. every Tuesday on upstart.net.au. Coming up, we have Jake and Adam giving us all the pop culture news in the cut.
Adam Ioannidis, Jake Kohler, how are we doing?
Good, thanks. How are
you, Geordie Meadows?
Oh, I'm very well, thank you.
That's good.
Now, Adam, you've taken my spot in the cut this week. What's been going on?
Well, Archer has been announced to end at season 10.
Sorry, who? Kidding.
You're so funny. No one cares, though. Season 10, Archer will be finishing. 7th season just finished, which will be very interesting where they take it considering Archer is dead at the end of the 7th season. And it was probably the worst season they've done.
Well, I've never been into Archer, so I can't say anything about that.
Fair enough. I think I may have just spoiled it for Dan, but that's okay.
It's all right. He's not listening.
Another big news was announced yesterday. The Ben Affleck Batman movie has been announced as The Batman.
It's interesting.
That's the title. Very basic, straight to the point.
I think that's what they want. They're kind of going for, though, really. It's just that straightforward, like The Batman.
Well, they've said that it's an original storyline, but it's seeming to be more and more like the Arkham game storylines, which is, I don't know how that's original then. But
to the other Batman films, it's completely original.
It is. I'm not disappointed at that, though, because the Arkham games were not too bad in terms of story. Also, Wonder Woman has been named as an official queer character, which kind of seems a bit pointless because she's obviously queer. She lives on an island full of women. It's a little bit
Does proximity
pointless.
to women?
It seems like people just need the
we love a category.
She's queer. Don't worry.
Don't worry, we love her anyway.
Speaking of
nothing at all.
Nothing at all.
Yeah.
Speaking of trying to seamlessly.
Georgie, is there another musical coming out?
There might be.
Yeah, what is it?
It might be Mean Girls.
She doesn't even go here.
Oh, you don't even go here, Adam.
No, I don't.
You haven't even watched
You
it.
don't even want to be.
Yes, I have.
Oh, no, yeah, he has. We've discussed this. Yes,
seen
there
it.
might be. That's all I can say.
Have you confirmed the source?
Tina Fey. Oh yeah, we're mates.
TMZ.
Ooh.
No. Is there any word on casting or anything?
Not that I've. All is that it's premiering in DC.
Danny Trujillo, main cast.
I don't know. I haven't said anything. But yes, no. I'm just really excited. It's as we established, it's one in my top 5 favorite movies of all time.
Yep.
I know every word to it, so I will be checking out that musical.
Yeah, and we will definitely be getting into more of a detail with the Cut Uncut, which is on Fridays at 2.
It is.
Can't wait.
We've got tons of stuff to talk about because we've had 2 weeks off, so we'll go into more detail on all those things, including the new Luke Cage Netflix series,
New Westworld TV show, and Son of Zorn.
More Westworld.
Of course,
it's a TV show.
It just started yesterday.
Oh, exciting.
Very
nice.
exciting.
Obviously, I'm qualified for the Cut Uncut. So Sadly, we have no.
We come to the end of our conclusion.
Well, I mean, is that all you've had?
Have I? I can go for days.
Sadly, have you come to an end?
I may have.
Well, it sounded.
It's pretty Dan. What's Dan saying?
Sadly, friends, we have come to the end of another Upstart Live broadcast, and we only have 2 more to go. Executive producer Dan Martinez has something really exciting in the works for our final show, so be sure not to miss it, even if you have a class. But, that's okay. Just skip it.
Huge thank you